Okay, Leetcode daily problem. Problem number 2191, sort the jumbled numbers marked as medium. So this problem gives us two lists, mapping and nums, and it asks us to sort this nums according to the mapping given over here. So the mapping is quite simple. It is done in a decimal system, so we do not need any hash map for it. This mapping, as you can see in this example over here, is a simple decimal number mapping. So 0 has been mapped to 8, 1 to 9, index number 2 to 4, and so on and so forth. And one example that I can give is 991 over here will become 669, and 338 over here will become 007. So what it asks us is to sort this nums array pre-mapping. So we have to sort 991 338 38 pre-mapping. So I'll show you with an example since this is quite easy to understand, but still I'll show you with an example. 991 is 669 pre-mapping, and 338 over here is 007 pre-mapping. So when you sort it, the nums array will become 338991 pre-mapping. So this is not a good example. This is a better example. Still not a better example, but I hope you get the idea. So starting off with the code is quite easy to understand and implement. I have two solutions to this problem because Python makes this code way easier. We have a function that helps us convert to string. We have a function that helps us convert a string into integer quite easily. So the problem with this string to integer conversion is this cannot be done on larger numbers, hence I have to solution this. Another reason why I have two solutions is because this easier conversion is not available in other programming languages. So we have this converted list for pre-mapping pre-mapped numbers. So what we do is we iterate over these indexes of the nums list over here, and we create two temporary strings. So nums of I is one of the temporary strings, and an empty string is another temporary string. So what we do is we iterate over every single letter in the temporary string number 1, which is the nums of I, and we append that string based on the mapping that we have to this temp. So what we are doing here essentially is we are appending mapping of temporary 991. The very first element that we'll get, very first letter that we'll get in 991 is 9. So we are just mapping 9 and we are appending it to temp. So mapping of 9 over here, as you can see, is 6. So 6 is being appended to the temporary variable over here. In the next iteration, what will be appended will be this, and in the third iteration, mapping of 1, which is 9. So 6, 6 and 9 will be appended in such a form via this for loop. And then once we have this number, that is 669 over here, that will be changed in this temporary string, we append it to this converted list by converting it to an integer, since we need it for further operations. Likewise, we convert every single string in this nums array to this temp and then into an integer and then append it to this con list. Now what we are doing is we are altering this nums array in a fashion where this nums array has become an array of array or a list of lists. So what has it become is, what we are doing over here is for every single num of I, say 991, we are also appending the pre-mapped integer, which is 669 to it. So the new nums array will become this, comma 338 will become 007, so on and so forth. Likewise, we have converted this nums array into something like this. So what we are doing right now is we'll sort this nums array taking the second element of that specific list based on the specific element of second element of the list, using the inbuilt Python sort function and this key function, which uses anonymous function lambda x, which just helps us retrieve the second element of that list as 991, 669. So the second element at index 1 will be 669. So it will sort it based on this, and it just returns the num that will sort this nums array into based on this function that we have given over here. And finally, we are just returning num of 0. That is the very first element, that is the element after the mapping, the num after the mapping, that we are returning in the form of a list. So this code over here is quite simple to code up in Python, but the problem is the conversion to string and conversion to integer is not very feasible if the number is very large. In these test cases, there is not a number that is very large, so we do not really have a problem. But if the number is large, we'll have a problem, and to solve it, I have another solution to this problem. I have coded up this in Python only, but you can use C++ for this. That is not a problem. The code is fairly simple. It requires two do-while loops because of an edge case that will happen when you have a 0 that appears to be mapped in, that is mapped to something else. So 0 has been mapped to 9, vice versa, something. So we need a do while loop, and to implement a do while loop in Python, you use this while true and if n is less than 0 break statement. So what we are doing is, for every element in nums, so say 991, we are first taking the modulus of it, the remainder of it, with 10. So the remainder of 991 with 10 will be 1. Now we are adding it to a temporary variable, multiplying it by 10 raised to an exponent, right? So the initial exponent will be just 1, because we do not really need, because this is the very first number in this array, so it will be 10 raised to 0. Now 1 has been added to this temp variable. In the next iteration, when 9 comes, we'll just multiply it by 10 raised to 1, and 10 raised to 1, and now temp over here becomes temp over here becomes 91 until we get 991. So now how are we slicing the number? So 991 divided by 10 will result into 99.1, and as you can see, the number has been sliced. But the problem is, we have this decimal over here, this fractional. It is a fractional number. To get rid of this, we can just use these double slashes. Then we'll get rid of this, since these double slashes returns us the number divided and the floor of the number after division. So 99.1 will become 99. Likewise, we slice the number. Since the base goes from the ones place to the tens place, the hundreds place, so on and so forth. So the next logic over here is the logic that we have used in the Python in the program with the previous solution. It's the same logic, nothing has been changed over here, but the only change is in this logic. The time complexities of both the solutions will be the same, and I'll explain it using the shorter problem over here. So talking about the time complexity, the outer loop over here has a time complexity of n, that is the number of elements in this list, right? Now the inner time complexity will be m, that is the longest number in this nums list. Hence the total time complexity of this entire loop, the entire nested loop, will be n into m. Now talking about this line over here, the time complexity will be O of n. The worst time case will be O of n, since we are using a for loop to alter the nums array. Now we use this sort function, hence we have a time complexity of n log n over here. This inbuilt sort function of Python has the worst case time complexity of O of n log n. Now the final time complexity of this entire solution will be O of n into m plus O of n log n. Ignoring all the constants, we finally arrive at the time complexity O of n into m. So the worst case time complexity will be O of n into m. So this m can be a very large string. In the test cases, that really is not. If it is a very large string, this solution will not work, we have to import sys and change the limits of conversion of string there. But if it is a very large string, this solution will work regardless. Solution will also work in other programming languages if you directly convert it. That is it for this problem. I believe I'll just submit it and I'll show you. I believe this is one of the efficient ones, and as you can see, it is quite efficient. I'll submit the next solution too, and it should also result into a runtime somewhere around here. It results into a better equal runtime, as you can see. So that is it for this problem. If you have any questions, do let me know. Thank you.